Hey Blue Table fans, Spencer here, and today I thought I'd do a video for you on how to build an army in Dropzone Commander, because that seems to be the real sticking point for new players and people looking to get into the game, is how armies are built, because the game does have a very unique army building mechanic. So I thought, for the sake of everybody out there, I would explain how it works to the best of my ability. Of course, it's entirely possible I might get something wrong. I do have a rulebook with me just in case. But if I do forget something, if I miss something, what have you, please feel free to leave comments below, letting me know, and correct me. Alright, so the first step in building an army for Dropzone Commander is figuring out what size battle you're playing. There are 3 battle levels. There's Skirmish, which is between 500 and 999 points. There's Clash, which is between 1,000 and 1,999 points. And then there's Battle, which is 2,000 to 3,000 points. Now, in the book, it only goes up to 3,000. You could conceivably do more, but honestly, a 3,000 point game is going to be huge, and it's going to have a lot of models, and it's going to be really difficult to play in the course of, say, an hour or two. It's going to take a whole night or a whole afternoon or whatever time you start playing. So every army has a standard army roster, and this consists of 5 different categories. You have HQ, which is where your command units are, Armor, which is mostly heavy hitters. You have Infantry, which is pretty self-explanatory, Special, which is unique to each faction and usually consists of heavy or support or however that faction really plays, and then you have Fleet, which is where you have like your fast-moving flyers and your interceptors and stuff like that. Now, depending on the size of the game you're playing and the battle category that you're in, it determines how many battle groups you can have total. So, for example, a Skirmish can have 5 battle groups, a Clash can have 6, and a Battle can have 7. Now, depending on the size of the game, that will also dictate how many squads you can take in each of those battle groups. And it'll also determine how many of those battle groups you can take. So for example, in a Skirmish, you can have 0 to 1 special, but in a battle, you can have 0 to 2. So you could have 2 special battle groups, and that kind of opens it up and it kind of changes it. So again, for example, in a Skirmish, you can have 0 to 1 HQ, but in a Clash or a battle size game, you have to have an HQ choice because you have to have a command. Skirmish games are really best suited for little quick one-off scenarios or learning the game. The majority of the games you're going to play are going to be either Clash or Battle. For the most part, they're going to be Clash because 1,500 points is kind of a good area for it. 2,000 points can be fun, but it does take a little bit longer to do. Now, each of the armies does have sort of a unique way in that their battle groups are built. For example, Shaltari HQ can take a command, a heavy, a scout, and an exotic, whereas PHR can only take command, exotic, and scout. They can't take a heavy choice in their command battle group, whereas Shaltari can. So it does give each army a bit of a unique vibe without drastically being different, basically by just swapping out what can and cannot go into certain battle groups. So when you're building your army, you build it out of battle groups, and those are the 5 categories: so Special, Fleet, HQ, Armor, and Infantry. And inside those battle groups, you have squads. And based on the size of the game, again, that will determine how many squads in which subcategories you can have inside of a battle group. So using the Shaltari HQ, the Court of Elders, using that as an example, in a Skirmish game, you can have 0 to 1 command choices, which means you can have 1 Coyote, and you can have 0 to 1 scout choices. In a Skirmish-sized game, the Court of Elders cannot take a heavy or an exotic. But once you start moving up to Clash and Battle, you can start taking those, and you can start taking stuff in greater numbers. So when you're building your army, you have your battle groups, and then you have your squads inside that battle group. And based on the size of the game, like I said, you can take different numbers of squads and different types of squads, but each battle group also has a limit on how many squads you can take within it. So let's use the Shaltari Spear Tip battle group as a good example here. And I'm using Shaltari a lot because they're what I'm most familiar with. So apologies to players of all the other armies, I'm just going with what I know. So in a Spear Tip battle group, in a Clash-sized game, so we're talking between 1,000 and 1,999 points, you can have 1 to 2 scout units and 0 to 2 exotic units. However, you can only have a maximum of 3 units in a battle group of a Spear Tip in a Clash-sized game. So you can't actually max that out, and it kind of makes it so you have to put in what's going to work, and you kind of have to strategize instead of just spamming, because you can only take so much. Now, backtracking a little bit, based on the size of the game you're playing, it also dictates how many of each battle group you can take. So for example, in a clash size game, you can only have a maximum of 2 armored battle groups. You can never have more than that. And you have to keep in mind you can only have 6 battle groups total in your army in a clash size game. So it means you can't just pour stuff into it. You have to really strategize beforehand as to where you're going to put stuff in your army and how you're going to compose your army, because that's going to really dictate how things are done. So composing the army in Dropzone Commander is kind of a 2-tiered thing. You have your battle groups, and then you have your squads inside of the battle groups. And that's where it gets tricky. People have a lot of trouble remembering what is what. Well, a battle group is a group of squads. It consists of units, which all activate together. They all activate at the same time. Whereas units are groups of models inside of a battle group. And I know it seems a little weird to newer people, and even though some people have been playing it for a while, I know people who play Dropzone, they still get a little mixed up with army building. But the best way to kind of think about it is compare it to a modern military. You have battalions, and inside battalions you have platoons. Inside platoons, you have teams, fire teams, squads, whatever term your nation's military may use. And it's much the same way in Dropzone Commander. Just you have battle groups, and then you have squads. You have units, and that's it. And it really does work because it gives the game a unique way of doing things. Because you activate all units in a battle group together, instead of alternating between activating a unit and then activating a unit and then activating a unit, like some other games like, say, Warzone or Malifaux or what have you, you activate all the units in a battle group. So the bigger the battle group, the more units you get to activate at once. But the bigger the battle group, the less battle groups you're going to have, because you're going to eat up all your points. And you have to have a minimum amount of certain battle groups. Like in a clash size game, you have to have an HQ, and you have to have at least 1 armor, and you have to have at least 1 special. Everything else is 0 to whatever. But you have to have those 3 in that size of game. And depending on the army you're playing, that might really change how you do things. Because a Shaltari army, an HQ in a clash size game could take a Coyote and a unit of Jaguars. You could take a squad of 3 Jaguars, whereas a PHR army couldn't do that. They couldn't take heavy walkers in their HQ slot. So you can kind of mix it up, and you can get different ways of doing things. Shaltari, for example, are really great at getting out heavy walkers, getting out their war striders. And with the new battle striders, you're really able to get a lot of those out as well because of the way their army is set up, with the way their battle groups are organized. PHR is really good at doing it, but they can't do it in other ways. Like, they can't get them in the HQ. But you can mix up different things. Like, you can have a command in a PHR army, you can have a command unit like a Zeus Walker in a special slot, because one of their specials has command as an option. Where Shaltari, it's in their armored section. So it really changes up how you want to build your list, because if you want to have multiple commanders and really kind of keep yourself together and guarantee that you're going to be able to draw cards and what have you, then you're going to build your army different ways depending on the army you play. So it's not like other games where it's required that you have like HQ and 2 troops, and you know, it really does open it up more. It lets you do more, and it lets you have more flexibility, and it gives you more strategic ability, and I love it. Guys, frankly, I am absolutely in love with the way Dropzone Commander does its army building. Yeah, it can be a little confusing, but the best way to remember is that you have a certain number of battle groups you can take, and inside those battle groups, depending on the size of the game you're playing, you have a certain number of squads you can take. And it's a lot of numbers. I won't lie there. It's a lot to keep track of. But once you kind of get it down, it's very easy to kind of get the hang of and kind of remember how everything works. Personally, I suggest going to hawkwargames.com, which is the website for Dropzone Commander. Go to their download section. There is a subsection in there called software. Go in there and download the army creation software they have. It's called Fighting Forces of the Reclamation. And it's amazing. It'll tell you if you're not building your list right, and it'll show you kind of how everything goes together. It can still be a little confusing because of the way it is set up, but it's very simple once you get the hang of it, and the list builder really does help. And it also prints out all your stats for you, which is very handy. Now, I also want to talk about commanders and upgrading your command model, to give them different abilities. And this kind of plays into army building because it's something you do in army building, but each of them has a sort of unique thing going on. So let's stick with my Shaltari example. You have a coyote and you want to upgrade the commander. Well, you have a couple different choices, and each of those choices has a name like elder, shaman, what have you. And then they've got their command value, which is how many cards you can have. They have their command radius, which is their sphere of influence when certain cards say they can be played within the sphere of influence or command radius or what have you. Then they have their points, but between sphere of influence and points, there's another column, and it tells you what size army you can take that model in, or that upgrade in at least. So, for example, the lowest level Shaltari commander can be taken in skirmish, clash, or battle. But once you start moving up, they start only being able to be taken in clashes and battles. And the highest one, which is like 295 points on top of the cost of the coyote, can only be taken in a battle. So you can't spam low-level commanders and use that to get cards, because if you get in big enough battles, you can't take them anymore. So I hope this has helped you guys kind of get a better understanding of how army building in Dropzone Commander works. If you have any further questions or comments, please leave them below. I will be sure to check them and I will answer them to the best of my ability. And yeah, I really hope this has kind of opened you up to how Dropzone Commander works, and because it's an awesome game, guys. It really is. It's a very unique, very fun game that offers up a lot of really unique opportunities. It's a very strategic game. It's a very deep game. It's not a game that can be won in the list building stage. You could build the greatest list ever, but it's not going to win you the game, because a lot of the game is dependent on getting objectives. And you could run an infantry heavy list, but oh hey, you blew up all my dropships, great, now my infantry can't get away. So it's not a game that's won in list building, it's a game that's won on the tabletop. And that's the sign of a good game in my opinion. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.